So let's be honest. CitizenCon less than a week away. There's a lot of things that we're hoping to see. Some really cool shit. Hopefully, but really the main driver, of course, was 3.3 getting to at least the PTU, getting into players' hands. But without OCS, what's really the point?
Au contraire, mon capitaine! He's back!
So OCS is apparently back on the table for 3.3. And that was a bit of a surprise. Apparently, I guess they were working on two different threads, roads, metaphors, whatever. And the OCS was working out a lot better than they expected. And I guess the Hurston and the Lorville technically weren't a part of that package, whatever. So that is going to come a little bit later in a supplementary patch, but we are going to be getting OCS with the 3.3 PTU, and apparently it works well. Now, CIG has said that, but I have independent information that kind of confirms that it works very well. The original versions were apparently quite buggy and quite crashy, but overall the performance has improved quite dramatically in some cases. So I'm really hopeful around that. I mean, anything that kind of makes the universe more playable, more livable. Of course, recently I did a couple of videos, including the background, the one you're seeing right now, where the universe is for the most part working. And, you know, it's not a chore to play it. It's not a chore to load it up and enjoy it. And so hopefully this kind of signals a bit of a shift in making the game much more enjoyable, or not the game, the demo much more enjoyable to play, much more interesting. Because one of the big things that always pulls you back is the performance, the stuttering, the frames, the freezes, all this stuff. It always kind of pulls you out and kind of like, oh, I wish this shit was working. I'll come back when it is. Now it's going to feel a lot more livable, a lot more enjoyable to play the game, which I think is better for everyone. So fingers crossed. I guess we'll find out on the 10th. Yep, the 10th. So what are we going to see on the 10th? What ships are we going to see? Now, of course, there's going to be the usual bundles, the usual shit, but what is going to be the big ship? What is it going to be? And honestly, I feel that it's the Kraken. That's where if I had to put down money on it, that's where the money would be. It would be on the Kraken. Maybe they'll change the name to it, possibly, but I feel that that's going to be the light scout escort type carrier ship. I think that's going to be it. Now, do we really need a Kraken? I would argue yes. Now, when people talk about moving fighters over long distances, of course, the Kraken kind of comes as an idea of convenience, because certainly you can bring fighters along with a Polaris. You can bring fighters along with an Idris, and you might say, well, fighters, I mean, the Polaris can only really fit one, but you can cycle them through that, you know, that landing bay. Even though you can only get one, you can take turns refueling, rearming them, so you can cycle them through. The only real major inconvenience with the Polaris, and a little less so with the Idris, is the amount that you can carry along with you, because even though you can cycle fighters through, you still have to deal with their limited jump range or their limited quantum range, whereas something like potentially a Kraken, you can carry a whole bunch more on board that ship and then drop them off at your destination, if it really does end up being that. Because they could change things around, they could mix things up, they could decide to go with a different idea. Maybe it'll carry more, maybe it'll carry less, maybe it'll be something a little bit different than we originally envisioned or they originally discussed. Things do change, so that's where I think that it's going to end up. The only ship that could possibly squeeze in there otherwise that we know of, that's coming, I mean, if you think about things like the Mercury, the Crusader Mercury, that just came out of the blue, right? That came out of nowhere. We had very little advance warning that they were thinking along those lines, and then all of a sudden, boom, it dropped. So the Corsair is a possibility. But I think the Corsair is probably going to be, if it does turn up, it's going to turn up at the anniversary sale. That's probably when we're going to see that. Now, some people might say, well, you know, you already got your mid-level pirate ship in the Mercury, so you don't really need a Corsair. But no, they were built around different ideas, different concepts. The Mercury is a smuggler, a data runner. The Corsair was meant as a combat ship, a broadsiding combat ship. So I don't think that the Mercury is really going to fit the bill, because the Mercury isn't all that heavily armed. So chances are, that's where I see those two ships kind of coming in. That's where I feel that that's how things are going to take shape over the next month and a half. So, what are the chances that we will see a surprise? Something revealed to us that we didn't know. Something big, something, a bit of a splash. In terms of ships, there is a ship that is kind of lingering out there. A ship that we kind of got a little bit of a hint about, and then nothing since. And I think that there's really two ways that this could have gone. And I'm talking about, of course, the Polaris. Now, the Polaris, of course, is a ship that was very enthusiastically received by the Star Citizen community all the way back in 2016 when it was originally sold. And in the year since, we of course got the Hammerhead, which seemed to be a bit of a complementary ship to the Polaris. There were possibilities there. But overall, since the sale of the Polaris, we hadn't heard anything in a long time. Now that changed back in March of this year when Disco Lando dropped a hint on an RTV that potentially the Polaris would be going into production in April. And since then, we have heard nothing. Now, realistically, I think that this could have gone two different ways. One, this is another 890 jump situation. Now, you remember that the 890 jump was supposed to have begun production back in March of 2016. It was on the schedule. The date came and went. We heard nothing different. And now we're only seeing the 890 jump really kind of start to go into production over the summer. That was when we first started seeing shots of them actually working on the 890 jump, and many people, myself included, kind of went, I think that the 600i supplanted it, and they said, you know what, let's do the 600, let's get the look and feel, and then we'll step up to the 890 jump. And since then, we've seen a lot of progress on the 890 jump, and I have a feeling that is what happened to the Polaris as well. The Polaris, they were kind of like, oh, you know what, let's get started. No, something else stepped in front of the Polaris, and then they said, you know what, we'll come back to this at a later date. Is it possible that they could all of a sudden drop a bombshell, like all these shots of the Polaris, maybe say not CitizenCon, but at the anniversary sale, and say, hey, almost done, here's your chance to get it once again at the anniversary sale? Possible, but I have a feeling that because how excitedly the community received this ship, how excited they were to see it, this was a very sexy looking ship. This was a very nice looking ship. It had some real potential in the way it was armed, the way it was built out. A lot of people looked at it and just said, yep, that's actually the capital ship that I want. There were a lot of people that I know of who were like, I would never own a capital ship. And then that Corvette came out and they're like, oh, no. I want that. And people were going through and just melting shit to get that ship. And it's possible. It's possible that CIG is going to go that way with it and maybe have a big reveal. But I have a feeling that it probably didn't go into production now. I just feel that at some point someone would have spilled the beans and said, oh yeah, well, wait till they see the Polaris or something like that. I don't think that they're holding it back, because I think they know the community is very excited for this ship. They're very excited to see it in the game. And so when it actually does go into production, and there's going to be a whole lot of videos detailing the work as it kind of comes to life. A lot of stuff to comment on and talk about, but chances of seeing the Polaris anytime soon, I don't think so. I think that even if the ship went into production tomorrow, it would still be more than a year away before it's finished. So unfortunately, no, I don't think we'll be seeing the Polaris. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you again on Monday. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.